Hello, lovely people. Welcome to another episode of the Occult Saga podcast. And today's episode is actually the gray and maybe the rainbow as well. Because through my own personal, I don't know, delving into how these paths work and how colorful life can be, from the good to the bad to the everything, found out that honestly, there is the gray, but in between of the gray, you do find a lot of color, a lot of possibilities. If everything was just black and white and gray, I would just be like the color palette of life is a bit annoying as fuck to me personally. I love color. If you've been on my Twitch, you already know. Um, Even though I don't really have the overlay over here, you can see I like color just from everything on my profiles. So yeah, that's just a little personal note I have with it. But also in terms of philosophical approaches to life, it's just between the light and the dark and the everything of everything, and also just going through the middle path that is, usually also called the gray path or whatever, you really do notice that there is way more to life. There's way more intricacies, there's way more color. There's also the possibility of the void of color, but you kind of go through a rainbow of experiences anyway to get to where you need to get to. You don't get stuck in one place. There's not one aspect that is better than the other. There's no one answer to all of it. So we're going to delve into it a little bit. We're not probably going to harp on it too much because I don't really feel like there's too much. I feel like this might be a quick one. But yeah, the gray is we already kind of spoke a bit about it, that it's just the middle path of light and dark. It's basically you drawing in on the purpose of both of them and taking the road in between of them, trying to gain wisdom from each of the different sides of life. Because you understand that they kind of come into whole as one, kind of like one of the views of how you can see yin and yang. I know in spiritual community, terms online, we usually see yin and yang as just the feminine, the masculine. It's not only that, there's so many different interpretations behind it, but it does kind of stem from the point that we need both to have a equilibrium of light and life. Weird that I said light because I wanted to say life, but honestly, it is kind of unavoidable, right? You have to have some type of substance to things that actually is definable, but then also you can't necessarily just say everything is a positive and a negative, or good and bad. You do eliminate a lot of the point of either understanding or wisdom behind it. You kind of just throw things away to judgment, and a lot of the time, what it creates is just pain and ridicule and misunderstanding and isolation, and in general, treating anything and everything or people, especially when we're so complicated and we're constantly evolving, as just one or the other. And defining it to those terms really not only neglects us because we then get stuck literally in a paradigm of um, description of judgment and all of that jazz, but also we miss the point of how everything can be nuanced at some points. At other points, there's just more to it, to reality, right? If it was as simple as like good and bad on everything and you can just judge it like that, we wouldn't really have the problems we do have. Light has light and shadow, dark has light and shadow. The gray path takes in the wisdom that you can have from both and finding the wholeness in everything and having an actual even balance and equilibrium behind things, having one thing feed the other. Um, it's also it's also one of the ways that you do delve into deeper understandings of life and death as energies, a bit easier and better because it's just easier to grasp and understand, or how um, I guess a simpler way of explaining it is like the most horrible shit that can happen to a person, or the most rock bottom that a person that, like, you can experience or get to, really can bring you up to your highest highs. And that's a very interesting notion in life. You don't necessarily notice people talking about that all the time because it's way easier to process life when you actually define something as good and bad, and then you try and counteract it that way. But also, you can't really do that. You can't repress things you need to learn from, or the things that need to create a breakthrough through chaos, pain, disorder, or just darker exploration of self, right? How can you realize what is what if you don't kind of go through the dark of life, right? None of us are born knowing anything. We don't understand what is what until we actually experience it. And even after that, we only really experience it for ourselves. We can also adopt just definitions and limitations from either society or structures that keep us in bounds of like systems that just work. But eventually, those systems don't work because they're hiding a lot of like nooks and crannies of understanding and misunderstanding. Like mental health, for example, has been and science and a bunch of other things like that, right, have been a super big conversation these days, but they've been discriminated in our history and demonized. And that really put us against our own evolution. It's also even currently happening when it comes to the topics of sensitivity being and vulnerability being a weakness. Um, Higher IQ is better than higher EQ, emotional intelligence, right? Isn't like that important. That your survivability is higher, or your success as a person is higher just because you have higher intelligence, which is a myth actually. Uh, Really interesting how there's stories of people with really a high IQ doing really, really stupid shit, or having, mistakes that all of us kind of go through, regardless of where you land in those terms. And just the culture behind humans and how they try and protect themselves by means of fear instead of indulging in actual like growth and exploration of love and understanding has really been such a defined topic that's now getting out of its murkiness. And in life, the point has been more on survival than living, right? But we are supposed to explore everything to actually evolve and understand. And the great path is usually taken by people that really do want to delve into the pros and cons of both sides to understand their better sides or better middle, or how to fuse everything into a cohesive middle, or just a path of actual understanding, equilibrium, and balance, where you don't fall flat on your face when you are faced with your troubles or heartaches, or just, I don't know, your own mistakes and failures, right? You actually rise up from them and you let that feed into whatever could be your light, or you don't get blinded by whatever is the good and orderly and successful and light aspect of either people, humanity, or situations. You don't get blinded by this is just, the law or the rules of everything. This is just the easier path to just, nod and follow and go by, to then just end up also actually in a shadow aspect of some sort, in ignorance of bliss of some sort, where you're not really real. You're kind of just, going by what you think is right, or being your best version through being one-sided and ignoring the depth of who you are, or everything, or a system, or whatever it is. So, gray paths can also do their own kind of shadow dance, because obviously you Mostly from my experience as I've met people, they've been mostly the intellectual, philosophical types that are gushy-washy on the insides with their emotions, but they're trying to have like a stable progression forward. So they choose the gray path most of the time. And they do explore the positives more so than the negatives, which I don't know. I guess it as everything, is nuance. You don't want to go too much left, too much right, or too much gray, 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 right? Because it's kind of like adopting the balance from everything usually gives you more understanding and wisdom, right? If you can ask for understanding, you'll receive it, and you can then make actual like progress. But gray path people, there are some. I've not met many. I've had a few conversations with. It's basically people that do want to indulge only in darkness, but they also understand how destructive and unbalanced and unhealthy it is. And instead of just going all dark, completely dark, and just being dark, and then being like consumed by that, and also not having it be neither sustainable nor a foundation they can walk on, nor healthy for their relationships that they do need or want to either live or progress or do whatever the fuck they want to do, which some of these people do, like manipulating and playing games and being ahead and also having control and can have severe narcissistic traits. They indulge in the gray path because it's kind of like trying to be as dark as they can without it consuming them to a point of instability or death of some sort, or just not having anything to live by. Yes, they adopt some aspects of life, being with light of their own, selves, but it's usually just to feed a narrative of manipulation of some sort, which is really interesting. I was like, what the fuck? It's really crazy how you want to be super dark, but you're not doing that because you know you're gonna get fucked by the universe, whatever the situation is, and you need to have this balance to keep playing the game of life that suits you. So you can also argue that those people are still kind of following their own dark side or darkness more so than light, but they're using the path of the middle of gray, right? And they're just doing it in a way that is both shadow aspects. Just enough to get by, play games, manipulate, and also to be involved in many different groups. That type of approach kind of gives them variety and volume and the different like places and people and groups they can be a part of, and they can also siphon resources really easily that way too. Usually those people either make really good freeloaders or really good sleazy business people, either even in higher or lower ranks, where they can just like be successful opportunists. And it's not to say that all of them are just like positive or negative. Some of them really, really love, some of their close friends or family or partners, but they understand that like I can't really change my stripes. You either take me or leave me, and this way I will still be in your good graces. This way I will still have you in my life. This way I will still feel like you love me or feel like I love you, where maybe they don't even actually embody love in the same light. Maybe it is all conditional, right? So situational, just for the pros of relationships. And if those pros didn't exist there, there wouldn't be any relationship to begin with. Like if I couldn't get this X, Y, Z, whatever it is, right, then I wouldn't see you for who you are anyway, and I wouldn't be loving you. Or I already don't do that. It's just like, hey, these are the things I get from these relationships, and that's why I love these people. But that, opens up still a possible avenue for actual learning and understanding and etc., depending on who they have around them. how they treat them, why they treat them the way that they do. It's just a case of like usually the opportunist isn't going to choose that. They're going to enjoy playing games and feeling superior if they're following shadowy parts of like the gray path. They're going to still be like, no, I am right. You know, this is how life works. This is what balance is. This is like the survival of how things actually operate within, reality. And if you don't get it, then you're to this, to that, up in the clouds, or you don't have like substance and having your feet on the ground and understanding the reality of circumstances or humans or people or I don't know, business or whatever it is, right? Or family. Um, it's a very easy way to adopt certain topics to be um, the ends to every means or the means to every end. Or I guess just in general, like this is just, facts of existence, and everyone should follow this. And if you don't, then, you know, XYZ judgment of some sort. So, as much as the gray path can be a positive thing to go by because it's like an easy win access in some ways, from both sides, whether you indulge in the light of it to gain understanding and knowledge and find your better and worse sides and how to merge them into oneness and, all of that jazz, or if you have the other side of it where it's more living in survival and the opportunist aspect of it, and maybe like some shadowy stuff as well for manipulative or narcissistic reasons, or even just energy siphoning and being, vampiric. Um, it is a really good path to have just because it doesn't throttle you around in extremes. It keeps you on your toes to be more honest and real and kind of really use things for what you can or need to make them work with just to get ahead in life. Like you kind of hit the mark easier because you're not just going by one rule set, right? You're actually having to have like an even balance of some sort or to follow some rationale that leads you somewhere instead of you just being like life is only this or that, which makes you ignore so much more of it. Also, it can limit some people in not exploring certain extremes. So it depends on who you are and how you like it, right? But the middle path, as it were, is at least going to keep you in some sense of balance, even if you're exploring the shadowy parts. It's just kind of like the safer path in a way, you could say, and is always going to have some type of wisdom or understanding, and it's not going to be fast paced or a huge crash. Most of the time, it's going to be an even burn of life teaching you, regardless of which path of it you choose. Beyond the gray path, if you kind of delve into all of these things on loops or enough in terms of depth, or you just have multiple lifetimes where you explore all of these things from multiple perspectives and sides, um, you can get to the rainbow of life, as I describe it, which also goes from light and dark, or from light to dark, or vice versa, whatever you want to fucking call it, and has maybe a lot of gray in the in between of it, but ultimately it's kind of just breaking through, seeing all of the different colors that you can have in life, and then all of the different sides of you and the exploration of those sides, and them having their own purpose within different life circumstances, periods of time, or whatever. It's not being stuck in needing to choose one path and just following it. It's going with the flow of there's going to be different stages and you will have to change. There's no way you can't fucking change. You gotta fucking change. A lot of people that have like life path or destiny numbers, that are shifting numbers or changing numbers, however you calculate that stuff. I'd say five most of the time, but there's also a lot of other like life paths that involve or include that, depending on your deeper numerology and astrology and the other stuff as well. Like everyone's unique, right? It just depends on how everything is amalgamated for you. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be a case of like you're exploring all of these different aspects in one go in one life. You could be exploring the variety of, I guess, one thing as well if you're like a life path five, right? But if you land in the point of like exploring the rainbow of life, you're probably gonna experience that more if you have like one of those numbers, one of those I or master numbers as well, like 11, 22, 33, those type of numbers. But not necessarily. You might be just, still stuck exploring your own kind of focus on just one aspect and exploring all of its different sides. So use discernment. But yeah, if you go through jumping between the paths, going through the gray, and trying to really hack behind life for your own self and all of like the multidimensionality with it and really integrating it into like a conscious experience while you're here on Earth or in any other place, honestly. You really do start seeing the point that it's always going to be some type of change. There's no avoiding it. People choose to not change or to not believe in the point that there is going to be change, but other people cannot avoid it. You're going to be forced throughout your whole entire experience to go through the light and the dark and the in between of them, the shadow and the light aspects of it, the deeper in between where you start seeing more of the color of life and finding its deeper meaning and understanding that everything kind of feeds each other and you need everything to even like have creation or existence or life, right? Or to have meaningful death or void or darkness. There's no one safe spot. You can you can experience one focus point for what it will give you or provide you, but usually your truth is scattered all across. The whole plethora of color, so enjoy every moment for what you can in that what it's providing you, even if it's the most shittiest dark freaking color you can imagine, or the deepest blues that you're going through in your life, because it might be feeding something that's going to make you appreciate all of the highs of life later on, right? Following. Just because you haven't been the biggest complete asshole of your life or to the people around you that you love doesn't mean that there isn't a circumstance where you could potentially do that and be that. Just because you can judge someone for how they've treated someone that they love, right, doesn't mean that you're exempt from it under this certain circumstances of life that occur and that happen and that force you to go through your own different colors and then express and experience yourself in a certain way that provides understanding, teaches you, humbles you, and shows you where the truth lies to actually like make yourself the person you want to be or live the life that you really need to get the results you want. Because nothing is really coincidental, nothing is just make believe, nothing is accidental. Can it be just random and nonsensical? Yeah, definitely. At points it can be, but at the end of the day, you're your life. Sometimes it's not necessarily that it defines you or makes you who you are and you can't escape it and that's just it and you can't change, but it is a case of like you're the center point, right? You're the one that's somehow capable of having accountability or you have the power to call yourself or your life for what it is because you're the one that kind of brings it all together, right? And why is it happening the way it is? Um, There's always a deeper meaning there. How you figure it out, why you figure it out, if you even freaking figure it out, that's a whole nother thing. You might live multiple lives where you don't understand anything until like one life everything clicks and then you're like, motherfucker, right? You look back, you see your past lives, like it's all just clear that one lifetime. And then you understand how to become the person you've always wanted to, or to live those lives you've always wanted to. But it was a case of like following the multitude of rainbows or rainbow lives across your whole entire existence just to see every side of your soul and how to make it flow the way you want it. Control isn't necessarily forcing things to happen in life. Control is really t- taking the realization of understanding, right? And making the most out of it for what you can, and then accepting what you can't. Because there's a lot of stuff we can't control, we can't change. We gotta just live to be with it the best we can and to be the best we can with ourselves and everything surrounding us. Um, and yeah, my recommendation is don't fall into judgment of saying like this is how things are. They're never going to change. They're always going to be this way, and there's nothing you can do, and this is good and bad, and it's always going to be good and bad because we have a lot of life problems that way. That it just is the way it is, and it's futile to be anything else or to be doing anything else or to be changing or understanding and realizing and learning. That's gonna keep everyone stuck. Mostly you, if you say that to yourself about your life and where you are. Um, but more importantly, it's going to keep you away from experimenting with existence and figuring it out because it is simple and confusing at times, and it's a lot of things, and it's worth like actually delving into and seeing without that judgment, right? So, yeah, I feel like I had like a whole nother thing to say, but I'm gonna leave it because maybe I'll remember it after I watch this back. Um, my brain's a bit fogged out, although the weather cleared up, so maybe that's gonna help. But yeah, I hope you have a beautiful time, day, whatever it is, wherever you are. Uh, Thank you for tuning in. It's quite nice of you to be here. There might be some changes coming into my Twitch. YouTube mostly gonna be the same, although I might take a break on some things here and there. So, yeah, if you like this, give me a like to let me know. And yeah, I hope things go good for you. And if they don't, just find a way to cope through and, be the best you. So, peace out. See you next time.